Hello, and welcome to another episode of my Type 35 build. This is the third, possibly 500th time the body's been mocked up to the chassis. I don't know which, but I know it's somewhere between the two. It's steadily getting whittled down closer to its final shape though, and this go-around got some pretty cool work done to it. Like the mounting brackets for the radiator shell. The whole shell tapers forward, obviously, and that also includes the bottom. Being cast out of aluminum, it has a pretty good amount of drag to make it easier to remove from its mold. Consequently, the mounting brackets had to sit in an angle as well. So rather than sitting flat with the top of the frame rail, the brackets are tilted to match the angle on the bottom of the shell so that it'll sit straight up when bolted into place. Once I had it in position and got its mounting holes drilled, I took the extra time to slot the holes in the bracket to allow the shell to move fore and aft so that the panel gap adjustments on the radiator and scuttle ends of the hood could be made. Which is necessary because the hood is now attached with a piano hinge between the shell and the scuttle. Another one of those simple pieces that really just came out looking like the business. To get the look I wanted, I needed the mounts for the hinge to be as invisible as possible, so I cut the hinge to length, and on the ends, like here where it meets the radiator shell, I cut the last knuckle off but left the pin attached. Then I welded the loose knuckle to a bracket that mounts to the bottom of the shell and gets held in place by the motometer hardware and a bolt slipped through the hole that had previously been drilled through the shell. On the other side of the hinge, the mount is very similar to the front. The rearmost knuckle was cut off and welded to a bracket that bolts to the scuttle just like the radiator shell, only backwards. Its hardware will eventually join together with the mounting bolts for the firewall, but for now it shows how room is made available in the hinge to adjust the panel gaps on each end of the hood, and how the mounts for everything are just hiding in plain sight. The hood side's attached to the hinge with a line of bolts down the center, and I was really satisfied with how nice the assembly came out looking. While we're on the subject of things that bolt on, down the side of the body are a few fasteners that have been installed in the I forget how many holes drilled to attach the body to keep everything in place during mock-up. I also drilled a pair of pockets out to allow the leading joints in the lower rear control arms to bolt into their respective sides of the frame. And I cut the boat tail where it meets up against the scuttle. Probably 3 inches taken out here, and the same taken out on the passenger side as well. The curve from the boat tail to the scuttle came out looking pretty good, and while the passenger side fits a little tighter than the driver's side at the moment, the gaps will get evened out in the wash. The boat tail itself is held in place, or will be, with the same screw setup as the main body. But in the name of finally tending to things, I was really happy to get the body cut for the rear axles to pass through the tail. There's plenty of room to allow for suspension movement, and they're cut just slightly lower than the frame for a really clean look. Directly above them, however, is an interesting piece of hardware. The body, in its relaxed state, is about 6 inches wider than when it's installed. This presented a problem in the boat tail. I was worried that drawing it into position with the mounting screws would be problematic, so I positioned a bolt just ahead of the forward set of screws that's designed to draw the body in. Then, once the body mounting screws have been installed, this bolt will get flipped around and attached to the chassis for safekeeping, just in case it needs to be used at a later date. You can see, with just a single bolt, how nicely the boat tail lines up with the scuttle and with the frame itself. It all flows together nice enough to really make you smile. Still needing to be dealt with, though, is the axle pass-throughs that were cut out of the body originally. You can see here how the frame rail resides in the same place the axles were originally designed to. Panels are going to be fabricated to cover this area on both sides, and like the body, they need to be removable, which is a task all on its own. But when the new pass-throughs were cut out, you can see that the fiberglass between the two openings twisted as a result of the tail section being bolted in place. When it comes time to make the panels to cover the original cutouts, the fiberglass between the two will need to be twisted back into position. It's an awkward transition between the two body sections, to say the least. But for now, you get a good look at how much further back the axle center line is compared to the original setup. It's much more period looking. And now the axles are far enough away that they won't snatch the back pockets out of your shorts as you drive down the road.